idea.
Oh, yes.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Margot Reed. Here. Trustee Kara. President Honeychurch.
Here,
Trustee Thurston. Trustee
Hatfield,
Trustee Wynn Greer.
Here.
Trustee Young. Trustee Boyce.
Here.
Student Trustee Rodriguez.
thank you. Next item is item 4, a motion, approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Is
I
there a
second.
All right, thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we're on to number 5, which is comments from members of the public regarding closed session. There's no request to speak on closed session, although there is session. So this time we'll recess the meeting to go into closed session and reconvene at 7 o'clock. All right, good evening. We'll now reconvene the regular meeting and report of action taken in closed session. In closed session, we did approve an extension of the superintendent president's contract, and there was no other action taken in closed session. We'll move on now to comments from members of the public, and there are some requests to speak. The first of which is Cassie Montejo. Good evening. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to remind the board that there are no questions from the board or on public comment. So go ahead. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. I would just really like to make you gotta bear with me. I feel a little overwhelmed right now. Comment on something I came across in the C plan, that it was in large spent on things like salaries and benefits and things of that nature. And this plan was intended to go to Black students at our school. And I understand that there are things that are beyond my knowledge when it comes to this, but I believe that if we get funds that are, I guess, intended to change the dynamics of our college, I gotta breathe, we should then use those in a responsible manner. And I am aware that this plan is also in review to be approved again and maybe dispersed to other groups. And I guess maybe I would implore the board to rethink. I gotta breathe, I'm sorry. All of that, I guess, what they have done and haven't done, and how many things have been done that said they were being done, because heard about a lot of meetings about a lot of things that were going to get done that in the end didn't. So I just implore the board to, instead of talk about it, be about it and not be part of the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Next item, again, is public comment, and the next speaker is Jamari Dotson. If you're here, good evening.
Hi, my name is Jamari Dotson. I'm a member of BSU and also a member in A2Men. And I came here to talk about the C Plan 3.0. After reading about the C Plan 3.0, I have some suggestions that I want added to it. For an example, I've seen that a CRM is being incorporated inside of the C Plan to reach and better serve students in these disappropriated impacted. And my suggestion is that in that CRM, you guys would include certain resources that are specific to that person's major. So for an example, as someone who is a business administration major, I would appreciate if you guys would, email me the Rotaract Club or maybe internships that are connected with the school. For another example I can give is a nursing program. I found out that the college has a partnership with Kaiser Permanente. So it would be cool if you guys can, help out the nursing majors that are looking to work through that pipeline. My second suggestion is that I've seen in the C Plan 3.0 and 2.0 that you guys have implemented an outreach specialist. Something that will be good is that these outreach specialists or the outreach department works with clubs like BSU, A2Men, Puente Club, Pride Club, many more, to have a better connection with these high school students that the outreach is going to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Nathan Alcindor.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Nathan Alcindor. I am a member also of Amend here at Solano. I came here to this meeting today to to place a little bit of concerns and say a few things so the board would ask themselves a few questions regarding the C Plan 3.0. I haven't really read the whole thing yet, but I do know that coming from the previous C plans that I have read, I've seen the numbers. I would really much say that a lot of the goals that were said that were gonna get done, just like Cassie said earlier, has not been done. And I don't really see why we are creating another plan and adding more communities to another plan if the first and second plan we don't even know if it worked or not in the first place. You know, so my main thing is I would suggest is to focus on achieving the goals from the first and second one before even doing a third one, because how are we supposed to know what to do next if we don't even know what we suggested in the past even worked in the first place? Yeah, that's about it.
All right, thank you. Thanks for your comments. The next speaker is Erica Beam, also speaking on the C plan draft.
Good evening, trustees. My name is Erica Beam, and I'm in my 10th year as a full-time tenured faculty here at Solano College. I'm speaking tonight to share my concerns about the proposed C plan. This is the third plan in the 7th year that we have been asked by the Chancellor's office to change the way we operate, to make specific, long-lasting, and impactful changes to help students succeed in their courses and complete their educational goals. The ask from the Chancellor's office came with substantial funding with little to no restriction on spending requirements. In the last 4 years, we spent nearly $13 million of C funds. My concerns are specific to the funds spent for the prior plan cycle, the action items not completed, and the transformational and institutional change we have yet to see. Tonight, I'm asking the board and the community review the following. Under the second plan, Plan 2.0, how was the funding spent? How many supervisors, directors, managers, and administrators were paid using these funds, and for how much each year? On the list of action items, how many of the items were completed? How many times were events held, and have we held those events each year? Are pilots and initiatives still ongoing? Finally, regarding the 2.0 plan, since we did not meet the outcomes, when can we expect to see improvements in the metrics? For the proposed 3.0 plan, how will the list of actions be measured for success and scalability? If we don't see marked improvements under the Plan 3.0, how will the plan's leadership be held accountable? Finally, as a faculty member, I do not support the current 3.0 plan, as we have not demonstrated an ability to spend responsibly, implement meaningful change, and improve the success of our students, particularly our Black and African American students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Daryl Johnson, also on 14B, the C plan, which is student equity and achievement.
Right. Good morning.
Good evening.
Good evening. Excuse me. Right. Good evening, Ms. Superintendent, President Kelly Butler. Good evening, Board of Trustee members. And I'm going to speak on the C plan. So the C plan, I believe, was good, pilot, and it had different phases, and it affected transportation issues of the Falcon Flyer, and that was a good thing but to focus on disproportionately impacted students, more so African American students, is a great thing, because systematically there has been barriers. So the more we can help improve and help people feel wanted and appreciated, the more growth and improvement that they're going to have, and an increase of, their educational goals. Now, I wasn't able to see the statistical data because it's backdated before COVID, so we won't know if the C plan was actually successful till multiple years in the future. But I believe that we should expand these programs and keep it for impacted African American students. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Shannon, is it Dancy? Thank you. Dan Lee. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Board of Trustees and President Butler and members of the Solano community. My name is Shannon Danley. President of Ethnic Minority Coalition. I speak tonight not only as a leader, but as someone who understands the lived experiences of our Black and brown students, foster youth, and our justice impacted students, because I have lived many of those experiences myself when I was a student here at Solano. We must address one truth. We missed the metrics in the original seed plan, and those missed metrics became missed opportunities for our students. The seed plan promised to close gaps and build belonging. When commitments are met, students lose support. Gaps widen, persistence drops, and trust, already fragile, breaks again. What hurts most is not just that we missed the metrics, but that we haven't had a transparent conversation about why. As someone who advocates for these students daily, it's painful to hear them ask, why wasn't this done, without being able to give an answer. If we cannot be honest about the gaps, we cannot close them. If we cannot be accountable, we cannot improve them. And if we cannot improve, we fail the very students we promised to protect. Many of our students are living the same experience I once lived. I know what it feels like to be justice impacted. I know what it feels like to be counted out before anyone ever asked your story. I know what it feels like to carry trauma and still show up every day, trying to build a better life. So when I see these students fighting to stay in school, stay focused to build a better life, I see a system that's failing them to meet its commitments. We cannot pretend these missed opportunities are small. They are not small to the people they affect every day. This is why the EMC is asking tonight, not out of anger, but out of love for our students, for real transparency in the seed process. And just as importantly, real student voice. These students don't need us to speak for them. They need us to listen to them and value their insight as expertise, because they are the ones with the lived experience. And let me be clear, we don't need a brand new plan. We need to understand where the seed plan 2.0 fell short and fix it. Without repairing the foundation, another plan will repeat the same pathway forward. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your comments. So thanks to the speakers, and I'll just note that this is on for information and not on for a decision tonight. So we'll consider your comments going forward. The next item is item 10 on our agenda, which are reports, first of which is the Associated Students of Solano Community College. Good evening.
Dr. Ballesteros.
That's what it is.
Yeah, 'cause we know.
Oh, okay.
Hello again. To reintroduce myself, Dr. Gabby Ballesteros, the Director of Student Development and Engagement here. And I'm here to present on behalf of ASSC. So we're close to the near of the semester. ASSC has their last meeting this Friday, so they'll be wrapping up some important business items. Just to kind of recap some of their accomplishments this past fall. We had our Rock the Vote event where they invited the League of Women Voters to discuss Prop 50 in a nonpartisan way. We had a great turnout, a lot of great conversation and discussion and dialogue, and also we're able to help students register to vote. Next Tuesday, the Student Equity, Dean Watson Perez is hosting the Gathered and Giving event, which is going to be a Thanksgiving dinner it's during lunchtime, but called dinner for students. And we'll also be giving out bags of food for students to take home for the holidays in lieu of SNAP and EBT benefits being frozen. And ASSC is committing $2,000 to this event, so they'll be donating $2,000 towards those non-perishable items of like instant mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, etc. We hosted a Crawloween event, which was a huge success. It was a resource fair for students. We invited different programs, clubs, departments, EOPS, financial aid, business services, to basically interact with students and show what is available on campus. We also collaborated with the Basic Needs Center for a fresh fruit table. So we had a lot of fresh fruit there because that was right when SNAP and EBT was taken away. We have potentially 3 new students joining the board, which we're very excited for. And Angelica Ducalan and Veronica, student trustee, will be attending Advocacy Academy next month, hosted by the SSCCC. So we're excited for them to go back and learn more. And our final event to wrap up is, of course, Finals Week. Be hosting Finals Extended Hours. So December 8th to the 11th, each day we'll have a daytime program and a nighttime. We're focusing on different events that help students de-stress and just kind of be able to take a breather, such as stress ball making. We'll be having therapy dogs visit, affirmation jars, and of course, a lot of food and snacks and coffee and tea. We'll be hosting this in collaboration as well with the library in the 113 that we'll be calling the Falcon Relaxation Station for students to come and unwind. And we'll have the Falcon Fuel Bar with all of the goodies and treats. We're really big on naming things in our department. Looking forward to spring semester. ASSC is excited to attend Lobby Day in Sacramento, so we're planning to attend that. We're also planning to attend the General Assembly in San Francisco, hosted by the SSCCC. And Angelica, who is the VP of ASSC, is going to be hosting a TEDx event here on campus in March. She submitted a proposal, and so she's collaborating with a lot of different organizations on campus. But it is TEDx Solano Community College Women, and the theme is leading without permission. So she is working with a great team on bringing different speakers to campus. It'll be held in the theater. And once we have the flyer for that, I can share that with you all. We'd love for you all to attend. And in the Student Development Office, we just wrapped up our final event today for Native American Heritage Month. We had a great month of events, but we're looking forward how not to just end it at the end of the month, but keep doing it throughout the year. So we'll be hosting potentially an event in March with Kim Diocampo, one of our community members, around MMIW, the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. A panel during winter break. We're just going to get ready for spring, start thinking about graduation and what that looks like and how we can continue to elevate that celebration for our students. And we'll be launching our student organization handbook in the spring semester. But those are just a few updates about what's been going on. Very busy semester, but yeah, that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Next is Academic Senate report.
Good evening. So we've been busy on the Senate side as well. I went along with two senators, Tony Seals from Cosmetology and Melissa Reeve from English, to a plenary, which met down in San Diego, La Jolla area. There were lots of really important issues that were being discussed, statewide policy procedure issues related to curriculum and other issues, but two items that really rose to the top, I think, in a lot of conversations in the resolutions. One around this topic of AI, artificial intelligence. This is also going to be the theme of our January convocation and flex as we're really looking at this and trying to really understand both around how to engage it as teachers, as students are using it. How do we make sure that that any use that they're engaging in is really helping and benefiting their learning process? But also, how are we using it as professionals? Whether it's how we interact with each other using it, or whether it's looking at all the ways it can impact us. And so I think there's some really important conversations there. And the landscape is just, again, adjusting and changing so fast that it's a real important that we keep our eye on this. Another issue that has come up at plenary, and something I think we're talking a lot about in this entire country, is ICE raids specifically on college campuses, and real concerns about that and how that is impacting the sense of community and safety for students and faculty and staff and larger community members, and how to make sure that we are in compliance with new legislation, which I know we are engaging in currently, about having plans to notify students. But also, we just had an MDocu Ally training earlier this week as well, right? So we're doing some good things there. We also, back here in the Fairfield campus or in Solano County, have been engaging in conversations around hiring. 35 different applications were put forward for full-time faculty hires this year. We went through a month-long process of looking at data, talking about our mission, looking at our C plan, looking at the various priorities we have as a campus, and then the academic deans and academic senators ranked applications that were presented by members of the campus community, and that were still obviously in process here, but we're hoping for something like 15 of these positions to be filled this year, which is exciting to think about, which is a very large number for us as a college. But there's a lot of retirements and a huge need that we see around campus. We also, in our last Senate meeting, did discuss the C plan at length. This also came up and has been discussed quite a bit at our Student Equity Success Council, which is the primary way that the Senate is staying informed on the C plan. And we will be voting on it on December 1st. So that is something which we'll, again, learn more about tonight, and we've heard from the community already. And then finally, Commodore St. Germain, our former Student Equity Success Council coordinator, has really been leading the charge along with lots of other folks in our Student Equity Success Council as well to develop a drop survey so that when students are dropping, we can learn more about what may have actually precipitated that drop, whether that was something around external to the campus or something internal that we can address. So we're hoping that that can really help us make sure that we're serving students as well as possible. And that concludes my update.
Thank you. Questions? All right. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
Next item is College Governance Council combined with the Superintendent President's report.
Thank you. For college governance, we've met on October 22nd and November 12th. During those meetings, we approved the Ethnic Minority Coalition's update to their purpose, vision, and mission statements. We received a strategic plan update, and the council discussed updating the college's mission and vision to develop a bolder vision for the college. We also received presentations and updates on the Student Equity and Achievement Plan. We heard a presentation from Professor Maria Batista on behalf of the Student Equity and Success Committee on a proposed anti-racism and DEI statement for the college. The committee was very receptive and supportive of the statements and provided feedback, so she was going to take it back to the committee, bring back a revised version. We heard a presentation from Professor Combe St. Germain, as mentioned by Academic Senate President Josh Scott on behalf of Student Equity and Success Committee regarding the drop survey, basically assisting in us learning why students are dropping. And really a long-term goal is to use this information to preemptively provide students access to resources to improve student success and retention. We discussed the administrative program review, which is part of our accreditation requirements, but really something that they asked us to look at and improve for non-instructional programs, because we already have a review for our instructional programs. And so we are working on all of the non-instructional programs to submit a plan to help improve the college's integrated planning process. And lastly, we received a presentation on the first quarter budget, which is on tonight's agenda for the governing board. For the superintendent's updates, since the last time I provided an update, several things have occurred. So several faculty and college leadership members attended the Economic Development Corporation manufacturing breakfast. Trustees Cargo Reed, Wynn Greer, and Young were also in attendance. There's a conversation about manufacturing in Solano County and how we can make ourselves a more desirable option for employers. One of our faculty, Professor Tony Ayala, played a role in drafting, advocating, and sponsoring new California legislation AB 1123 that gives early educators a seat on the California Teacher Standards Board. Solano Theater won 8 Artie Awards across 2 productions, Head Over Heels and No Exit. And the college co-sponsored a Dia de los Muertos event with the city of Fairfield and the Solano Hispanic Chamber. It was really a great event with a lovely lantern ceremony at the end. The month of November, as shared by Dr. Ballesteros, was Native American Heritage Month, and we've hosted several events this month with a mixer launching the month, and then also workshops celebrating Native American culture and teaching about their traditions. Also this month, the college hosted the Veteran and Military Appreciation Luncheon with a taco bar, basket giveaways, and time for community connection. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, but trustees Cargo Reed and Wynn Greer were able to enjoy the celebration. We also had undocu allied training, and we have been sharing updates on how to be in compliance with SB 98, which is requiring that campuses notify the college when there are immigration law enforcement on campus, but the college has already included that in our procedures. We currently have a play, everybody, that is showing, and one of the cast members was here, but he's left. But Dr. David Williams is going to be in the play tomorrow. So this is the last week of the show. Tomorrow, Thursday, November 20th, is a Pay What You Can show. The last showing of the play is November 23rd. And so if you can make it, it would be great. And Veronica's working in the sound booth. It's awesome. And just two more things. Solano College's women's volleyball team wins an 8th straight BBC championship. They have a playoff game Saturday, November 22nd at 5 p.m. here on campus against Clovis Community College. Kitchell is sponsoring the annual employee holiday breakfast on Wednesday, December 10th in the back half of the cafeteria at 8:30 in the morning. And Josh already mentioned the faculty prioritization, so I will conclude my updates.
Thanks. Thanks for your report and update. Any questions? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion. There's no discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be discussed or removed. Time will be provided before the vote for clarification questions without removing an item from the consent agenda. So first of all, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded twice. So are there any questions on it, on any of the items? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, consent agenda is approved. We'll move on now to non-consent agenda items, action items. First of which is Human Resources. Salabody's presenting these items. The first of which is a resignation to retire.
Good evening, President Honey, church members of the board. Thank you so much. Before I do turn this over, because I believe our Dean of Enrollment Services, or A&R, does have some comments to read from the department, I do want to share that in your packets this evening, you will see a news article about our retiree that was written early in her career here at Solano. So I thought she shared that with me, and I thought it'd be great for the board to see that because I know how we like to celebrate our employees. So it's great. I believe Dean Borelli is joining us via Zoom.
Yep. Can you all hear me?
There we go. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Sal. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to read a couple of comments from both myself and our A&R supervisor. So first from me to Ricky. Ricky, when I joined Solano 7 years ago, it was immediately clear to me that you were a rock star employee. You've always done whatever is asked of you and whatever is needed, even oftentimes without being asked. And really, you help our A&R department efficiently assist students all the time. Ricky does everything she can to assist students to find the best path to reach their educational goals. She's consistently gone above and beyond in all aspects of her role. She exemplifies what it means to be student-centered. And on a personal note, Ricky, your retirement's going to leave a huge void for me and our team, and I'm not sure how we're going to survive without you. Thank you for your 14 plus years of service to Solano. Congratulations on your retirement, Ricky. You did it. And from Megan, she wanted to say, I was lucky enough to be able to work with Ricky for over 8 years. From my first day, she has been welcoming, willing to help in any way possible, and always there to offer words of encouragement and support. Truly one of the most important cogs in the machine of A&R, and she'll be sorely missed on the team. Congratulations on your retirement, Ricky. I look forward to our continued friendship. Again, congratulations, Ricky.
All right, thanks very much for your comments. So is there a motion to approve the retirement?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second.
So moving second to approve the retirement of Eric Smith. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you and congratulations. Thanks so much for the years in service you spent here. We appreciate it. I'm sure we're going to miss you. Enjoy retirement. So, next item is under the title of Academic Affairs. Vice President David Williams will be presenting this item, and it's a Strong Workforce Program Fund Agreement.
Thank you, President Honeychurch, Superintendent President Dr. Butler, members of the board. This is part of our ongoing allotment of strong workforce funding. This is part of round 9 funding, and this is for our regional allotment coming in. So this funding goes to support many of our activities that benefit workforce development in the region. We're asking for your support of this allotment of funds.
All right, is there a motion to approve the Strong Workforce Program Fund Agreement?
I'll make a motion to approve.
So it's moved and seconded to approve the Strong Workforce Program Fund Agreement. Any questions, comments? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
You also have the Early Childhood Mentor Program renewal.
Yes, this is another renewal. You've seen this before every year. This is an agreement that's run through Chabot Las Positas Community College District. This funds for our early childhood program. This helps fund the training for the mentors in the community, in the schools that work with our teachers. They get mentoring and training experience with our teachers, and this funds that program for people in the community, preparing our students for entrance into the workforce.
Well, thank you for that explanation. Is there a motion to approve the Early Childhood Mentor Program renewal?
I move that we approve item 13C.
I second that motion.
Moved and seconded to approve the Early Childhood Mentor Program renewal. Any questions, comments? Sure, go ahead.
Through the Child Development and Family Studies is one of our larger programs. I don't know off the top of my head. We have a significant number of students going into early childhood education. I can get those numbers for you. It's a really popular program. We need good qualified teachers out in the community for our children. Again, this goes towards the teachers in the community that help train those. So this goes to a smaller number of people, but we do have a significant number of graduates yearly for this program. I can get you that number and give it to the superintendent president to share with you.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor of approving the...
I have a question really quickly.
Oh,
is this for practicum students as well, or is it just for teachers to get the training to train the practicum students?
Yeah, so we send students off in different areas, and so sometimes they come onto campus, but this is for, a number of our students do practicum at the Early Learning Center on campus, but this is for students to go out into other educational settings.
Okay, thank you.
And this is funds that goes to different community colleges throughout the state. We're just one of the recipients of it.
So, with that, any other questions? No. So, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I want to be on record as approving the renewal of the Childhood Mentor Program, which is a great program.
We appreciate your support of our children.
Next item is under Student Services. Vice President Neely is presenting the HR items, first of which is a contract renewal for Child Development Services, General Child Care.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, President Honeychurch, and good evening, members of the board. So this is another one of our continued funding contracts that we have that support the wonderful work that we're doing at the Early Learning Center. This is a contract with the California Department of Social Services, and it's the general child care contract that provides some of the very much needed support in terms of our children and toddlers. So this particular contract, which if approved would roll, is worth about $500,000, and it will serve up to about 36 infant and toddlers combined, depending, and then there's some variables that sort of impact how those funds are spent, but it's about covering for about 36 infants and toddlers. So we're asking the board for approval of this continued contract, an important relationship.
Again, this is a Child Development Services contract renewal. Is there a motion to approve it?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
So it's moved and seconded to approve the contract renewal for Child Development Services. Are there any questions? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thanks for presenting this item. Next item is number 14, which is entitled Information Items, the first of which is a first quarter budget update. Vice President Wheat is presenting this item.
Yes, thank you, President Honeychurch, members of the board. I'm going to share my screen. This is included in your agenda packet, but I felt it would be easier to see up on the screen as soon as it shows up. Look at there. Oh, that is super small on there. No approval needed.
It's also in your agenda for those of you that
Yeah,
have
it'll probably be, I'm going to stop sharing because that's going to give everybody a headache. And we'll just go through it from your agenda packet. Now I have to go find it in my agenda packet. Actually, I can do it from my screen. I have my screen in front of me. The first page is a table of contents. The second page gives you just kind of an update summary on all the different items. I'm going to focus on page 3, which is our unrestricted fund. Our revenues are up a little bit from what we anticipated in the adopted budget. At the adopted budget, we were anticipating about 70 million, a little over. Right now, we're anticipating about 72 million. And we got some additional prior year adjustments, which increase that, which we will always take. Expenses are actually down a little bit from the adopted budget, just as we kind of go into that first quarter, do some adjustments here and there. So our ending, not our ending fund balance, but our fund balance deficit is coming in a little bit less than what we anticipated at the adopted budget. We were thinking about 6.5 million deficit. We're looking about 5.1 right now. That will change in our second quarter because if we go to the next page and our ending fund balance view, we have that 24-25 surplus payouts that we will be doing. That happens in the second quarter. So right now it's in the reserve. Come second quarter, when all those payouts are done, it'll move up into those expenses. So you'll see that when we do our second quarter update. Other than that, not much difference in our fund balance composition. A little bit increase in the reserve ratios due to the increase in the revenue. Again, those are going to change as we move those expenses for the surplus payout up into the expenses from the reserves. Next page is our federal funding that we get. A little bit of changes from the adopted budget. Not a huge difference. The biggest difference that you'll see on there is the Veterans Resource Center. All of these funds that are on here will change as the federal budget gets passed and the allocations actually get solidified. We'll see some changes here. For the Veterans Resource Center, I know that we are making, we are braiding that and filling in the gaps in that funding from other areas so that we don't lose those services. It's not a huge difference from our adopted budget. We want to make sure that that stays whole. The next couple pages are the restricted funds for the state allocations. The major changes between these are from where we actually ended last year with the carryovers and what the actual allocations are for this year as we know them as of the end of the first quarter. So that's where those changes are. They're broken out by all of the different categoricals so that you can see those. And then after the state are the local restricted funds. Changes here that it looks like a big drop from the adopted budget. Again, that's because of the carryover and closing out last year and where we were actually at the end of the last year and our estimated allocations for this year. Next page after that is our outlook on other funds. I like to provide this so you can see where our other funds. We focus a lot on those restricted and unrestricted funds, but we do have other funds that help our students out across campus. So I want to make sure that you have kind of an overall viewpoint of that as well. And then the next page is a new one for you. This is the SEC Educational Foundation. As we move into this year and the foundation became an auxiliary of the college itself, we want to bring their budget updates to you as well. Biggest difference between the educational budget update and the college's budget update is they are a 501(c), a nonprofits, and so they report a little bit differently than us. And so what you'll see is the actuals as of September 30th instead of the budget for the, they have their adopted budget and then the actuals. Instead of just updating the budget, they just show the actuals. So as of September 30th, they're about 30% of their revenue for the year and about 21% of their expenses for the year coming through. So they're in good shape as well. And then the last bits of the budget update are the index of what the categorical funds, all of the abbreviations that we provide, what they mean, and what they can be spent on. And I am open to any questions that you have.
So the questions on the first quarter financial update?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, VP Wheat, for presenting this very well laid out in terms of the numbers and the columns, and so I appreciate that. I'm just kind of wondering, today the Nonpartisan Legislative Analyst Office released their budget outlook for 26-27 for the state of California. It states that we're looking at an $18 billion budget deficit next year. It's up by $5 to $6 billion. How does, I know we can't foresee the future, but I believe we dodged a bullet this past year because last year the expected budget deficit was $30 billion and it only ended up being 12. But next year it's at 18. Even though revenues are up, we still have a budget deficit. How do you anticipate this all coming about for next year?
You know, that's a great question, and one that I'll have more information on for their second quarter update as the governor's January proposal comes out and we have a bigger outlook on that. I think we'll have a little bit of better understanding. A lot of it's up in the air as this is his last year in office and how that kind of plays out for future years. We were anticipating a mid-year budget update. So we're prepared for that. We have the reserves for that. I think we're taking the right strides in what we're doing, even though we're showing a deficit spend. We're taking the right strides and we've put the foundation in place to be able to handle if there are some upheavals in the state budget or in the federal budget. We can weather those for quite a few years.
Thank you so much. May I ask one follow-up question as well? Thank you so much there, Board. During your very beginning of the presentation, you mentioned that after 9:30 on page 129 here, which is page 3 of the budget, expenses are down for the first quarter, which sounds great, but is that at the expense of any of our students being hurt in terms of their educational opportunities or anything like that? I know it may sound like a naive question I'm asking, I apologize, but.
No, I completely understand your question. No, it's not down by a lot. And the unrestricted budget, majority of the unrestricted budget is in your salaries and benefits. You know, it's close to, you know, between 80 to 85%. So when we make these small adjustments for supplies and materials and services, it's really, it's not as impactful to the students. We use a lot of our categorical funding for programs and things of that. We have our restricted funds, which is a lottery, which is our instructional equipment and materials. So a lot of our stuff that we have, those small changes in those aren't affecting the classrooms.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes. Thank you so much, VP Wheat, for presenting the budgets. And I also appreciate that none of our students and are going to be negatively impacted by the unstable
That's our
governments right now. So I know this has been really well thought out. I appreciate that you and the team are looking ahead to make sure that we're not going to disrupt student services across the board. So I just really want to say thank you to everyone who makes this possible so that we don't have any interruption and fears. You know, I appreciate that also the team is available for questions if they have it. So
Absolutely, I'll pass
thank
that on.
you.
I thank you.
I have a quick question. For the undocumented resources liaisons, do we have a chart right now on how that money is being used? And for the future, do we know how that money can be used?
I can get that information for you. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Yeah, no worries.
But definitely I can get that for you.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
There's no other comments. So thank you for your report, and I think you're remarkably accurate between the proposed budget and the actual budget, except on the local restricted funds. Can you, and I know you mentioned it, but what is the cause of that?
The majority of the cause of that is when we do the adopted budget, we're estimating year-end actuals and what the carryover is going to be into the next year. And so by the time we get to the first budget, we've closed out last year completely, and so we have a better idea. We try very hard to have good estimates for you, but some of those last-minute expenses come through. That kind of throws off that adopted budget. And so as we look at that carryover and move it into the new year, that's where those discrepancies come in. We're also very conservative on what we think is coming in for the new year and what our possible allocations are. So
the second quarter might be
more in
different. Tune, so to speak.
Yeah.
All right, thanks again,
You're
Vice
welcome.
President. So we're going to move on now to item 14B, which is the Student Equity and Achievement Plan, which will be presented by Vice President Neely.
Thank you, President Honeychurch. I'm just going to pull up my screen and hopefully this does work. Is there a little delay on the... Was there? Okay. Give it a moment. Give it a moment. Something's happening. There we go. Okay, thank you. I am very pleased to be able to present as a first reading the Student Equity and Achievement Plan 3.0, which covers the years from 2025, this current year, for the next 3 years. And this would only be possible with the support of a lot of folks who have been a part of the process for pretty much the last 8 months. And obviously, we've had the previous plans that were alluded to earlier in the evening. And in presenting the information, I want to try to, if you'll indulge me, give a little bit of context and sort of flesh out some of the areas that are important to be aware of, because I know not everybody maybe shares the exact same understanding of the program, its purpose, kind of how it works. And I also want to thank the students who were here, and some of them had to leave, and appreciate their voices, because obviously this is a conversation that continues. It's an iterative process. And so I think that's important as well. But I really want to honor a lot of the work that has gone into what you see before you today. So what I'd like to try to cover today is, or this evening, is a little bit about the purpose of the plan, just to remind us, some information about the timeline, what kind of led to where we are today. And this is just one piece of it, right? The real work begins once the plan, once we start to implement the plan. Want to remind folks about the metrics, because there are some very specific data points that the Chancellor's Office wants us to look at and review and analyze in relationship to the plan. Just remind folks of the submission requirements, because they're very prescriptive about what it is they want us to speak to in terms of the plan. Identifying a couple of major sort of initiative and kind of thematic areas of the plan for the next 3 years, and then talk a little bit about student voices. So in terms of how it works, this is something that is in Title V language in terms of the requirement to have a student equity plan and the student equity program, which is a statewide initiative across all 116 community colleges. The college, our allocation is approximately $3.2 million annual allocation, and we'll talk a little bit later. I will talk a little bit later about how some of those funds are expended. It is a 3-year plan, so we're right about to submit for the next 3 years. And this is something that's required, again, of every one of the colleges. So this is the current plan for 25 to 2028. In terms of the purpose of the plan, and this is lifted from the Chancellor's office, but essentially it's about how do we advance equitable student outcomes? How do we look at success, and how do we do that in a way that is really promoting academic achievement for all of our students, but also paying particular attention to students who are in disproportionately impacted categories, and being able to focus on that and really think about how do we move those things forward. What that means, and certainly the very clear vision from the Chancellor's office that we also share, is that this fund, this mandated fund, is about strategic organizational change. This is about thinking from transaction to transformation. So it's important to kind of keep that in mind as we talk a little bit about some of the components. Some of the things that we spend the funds on is faculty and staff positions. I know somebody mentioned the idea or recognizing that there's a good chunk of the funds are spent on salaries and benefits. That is very typical across the state because, of course, when you're asking colleges to think about institutional lifts, you need to think about capacity. You need to think about, do we have the right people in the right places and the right resources? So some of that has allowed us to fund faculty positions. Some of our recent counseling positions were funded through equity funds. That means our outreach team, a lot of the funding goes to that. We identified in the previous plan that we wanted to bring an additional outreach specialist onto the team, specifically focusing on Black and African American recruitment. That's happened. Our ASTC, our tutoring center, a lot of the tutors are supported through equity funding. A lot of faculty opportunities and things like the Student Equity and Success Council coordinator, faculty coordinator supported with C funds, teaching for equity, et cetera. So just kind of gives you an idea of really how we're trying to provide an institutional lift by making sure that making sure that we have the right staff in the right places. That's just one of the places that we are spending funds. We have also a lot of programs and events that are supported by equity funds. Some of the newer spaces that are really important part of what we believe creates a stronger sense of belonging is some of the culturally affirming spaces on campus. So we opened the Pride Center with support from the equity funds. We opened the Black Student Cultural Center 2 years ago. The Wellness Center continues to get funded through equity funds. And then also professional development is another area. I mentioned Teaching for Equity, which is a faculty-initiated kind of community of practice around equitizing the environment in classrooms for students. That's something that is supported through that. We've also worked with educational experts in the arenas of higher ed, looking at DEI training, anti-racism training. We're bringing in experts where we need to help us be better at some of these things, and so that's where some of the funding goes. And there's also lots of other initiatives. Last year we sent 20 students to the Amend Conference in Los Angeles. We sent 10 students along with 10 faculty on the Alabama Civil Rights trip. We support our recognition ceremonies at the end of the year through this funding across populations. And of course, I think one of the big wins of the last plan was the Falcon Flyer, because we knew that for years there has been a lot of need around transportation. We were able to finally put something together. But again, that was something we identified in the last plan and we said we wanted to do, and we were able to launch before the end of the last plan. And so that was another way that we are expending those funds. But it's important to remember that the plan is a roadmap and not a blueprint. And I think that's purposefully from the Chancellor's office, the idea that it charts a path in terms of where we want to go. And of course, we need to be intentional and think about the data. What does that tell us? What do we need to do? And what are the strategies that we think will help us meet those goals, or at least move towards those goals? At the same time, too, this is not a blueprint that is fixed, in the sense that not every little detail has to be ironed out, because I think there's an understanding that this work is iterative. This is a process. We want this document to be a living, breathing organism that allows us to learn, allows us to grow, try some stuff out, see what works, what doesn't work, pivot as we need. So it's just, again, kind of thinking about that in terms of the framework. One of the things I want to also say before I get to the time, let me just go back one slide, because I want to make sure that folks are clear about this. The Student Equity and Achievement Program is not primarily a student direct aid program. It is really looking for that transformational structural changes, having the college examine our structures, our policies, our practices, our procedures. And so we have other ways and other funds that we use to provide direct aid, a lot of direct aid to students. And I just want to make sure, because I think that's an important distinction, and I just jotted down a note for myself here. At the beginning of this semester, we provided $10 million in direct aid to our students in the form of direct aid and fee waivers. This semester alone, so far, we've already distributed $60,000 in emergency grants to students. And the last academic year, we dispersed $350,000 in emergency grants to students. And that typically was for basic needs support. More than half of that amount was for housing. And it's worth underscoring that our college, because of the work that Dr. Christina Rodriguez does as our Director of Basic Needs, who has a housing background, compared to colleges in the area, we do a lot more, and we have a lot more of a comprehensive support network for students when it comes to housing. And I think that's something that we should be proud of. And it doesn't mean that we stop doing that, because of course we know the needs continue, but we're able to provide quite a lot of direct aid student support. So we're not looking for the C fund to do that. It's a complementary partnership in that way. Okay. In terms of the timeline, just to give you a little bit of an idea, this is a process that sort of began last spring. The Chancellor's Office delivers data to each of the colleges, and we're supposed to look at the data, kind of see what it says, what does it mean, what questions is it asking, and then based on that, working with the research office and then working within the work group that was formulated a couple of years ago, the Student Equity and Achievement Work Group, which is a bi-weekly group of folks that kind of help think about, look at, implement, and kind of evaluate how we're doing. We looked at the data, and a proposal came forward campus-wide that was largely agreed and accepted to look at for this coming plan, that we would focus based on the data on 3 student populations. If you remember the last Student and Equity and Achievement Plan, which folks again spoke to this evening very compellingly, we looked at the data, and because of the startling nature of the data, we felt that we needed to focus the entire plan on Black and African American students. That work has definitely not ended. We are seeing some green shoots of promise, but it also means that we know we're going to name that population again this time around, because we know that that work needs to continue. In addition, we also felt, looking at the data, that there were other populations that were vulnerable, that were disproportionately impacted, that we felt really needed some additional more acute and niche interventions. So in addition to Black students, we are looking at supporting our Latinx students and our LGBTQ plus students. So those are the 3 focus populations that evolved out of looking at the data and the whole process and the conversations that have been happening over the last 8 months. But you can see kind of different points of intersection between brainstorming sessions, visioning sessions, feedback, speaking with students. We had some great sessions with ASSC and other student organizations, with faculty, with staff, et cetera. So it's an iterative process of kind of conversation and kind of thinking about envisioning what is it that we think we need to do next? What does that look like? What's the good work we've been doing, and where do we need to go? And there are 23 writers and editors that have worked really, I think, comprehensively and in a very principled way on developing the plan that we have submitted. Just a reminder in terms of, I'll go into the plan submission elements in a moment, but just a reminder that, again, the overarching metric framework that the Chancellor's Office is asking us to consider are 5 key metrics. Successful enrollment, which essentially means from the moment a student is essentially interested in applying at the college to the moment that they're enrolled in a class. That's the definition for successful enrollment. Completed transfer level in math in the first year. Persistence is the term that talks about the number of students who successfully move between the first and second term, or what they call the primary and secondary terms, which essentially is fall to spring. We know, sadly, across the state, not just here at the college, that we lose more students than we would like to between those 2 semesters. So persistence is a very important metric. Completion of a certificate or degree, and then transfer to a 4-year institution. It's important in terms of thinking about looking at the data, because we looked at different populations, disproportionately impacted populations, against these 5 metrics in order to think about what are the populations that we want to continue to support and how do we want to move on in terms of including these 2 other populations. It's also, I think, important just to have a little word about the data because, and we've had a lot of really sort of robust conversations. And so I think one of the things that we have tried to remember is that data just tells us one part of the story. There's other factors, there's other variables, there's other qualitative impact that we can see and that we can measure and that we can look at. And so I think what's important is that, looking at not just what the data is asking, but also what are our practitioners saying, what are our students saying, what's the experience on the ground look like. But a couple of things just as caveats with regard to the Chancellor's data. One is the data is distilled through their definitions. And so it's kind of, in a sense, playing in somebody else's sandbox because they've created this one-size-fits-all framework for the whole system. I think two, we know that because of the longitudinal nature of the cohorts they're looking at, that a lot of the data lags, as a common element in a lot of research. And so it is sometimes, I get it, it's frustrating when you look at data and you feel like it's lagging by a couple of years. You want to know, what does it look like today? Thankfully, our research team has been working tirelessly, and I think probably by this summer, maybe into next fall, they will have the resources and the mechanisms to actually look in more real time at some of our local data. And that's something that I know has been an important part of the conversation. I think the third thing is also that the definitions for each of the 5 metrics you see before you, in some ways they're restrictive because it's a one-size-fits-all. So for example, if you just look at something like the completion metric, the chancellor's definition of a student reaching a certificate or degree is within 3 years. And so the framework that they are imposing on all of the colleges is essentially a framework in which the expectation is that the majority of students are full-time students taking 12 units per semester on average. The majority of our students are part-time students. So I just want to be mindful that when we think about the data, we don't want to get locked into a rigid definition, because essentially if we were to make great strides over the next 3 years, let's just say, with our part-time students, more of them reaching completion, if they weren't doing it in the 3-year window as prescribed by the chancellor's office, they would not hit that metric. So we always want to kind of keep some perspective, right, and some context in terms of the data. I think that's an important piece. Okay, so we talked about the 3 populations, and then I just want to talk a little bit about the submission elements, what's required in the plan. So the first part of the plan, which is something that happens each year, is the reflection section. So really it's looking back at the previous plan, and really what they're looking at is 2 things. They're looking at what are the key learnings, what is it that we have seen some success in, and what are the things that we want to continue, and of course, what are the challenges, what are the things that we weren't able to accomplish. So I think what's interesting is both in terms of thinking about the equity gaps that our students are experiencing, we know that these are also impacted by long-standing systemic barriers and institutional racism. So this is not work that happens quickly. This is work that is iterative, that requires that the long view, in addition to the urgency to try to do what we can year on year. So I think that's one piece of it. Also, our data for Black student success mirrors largely, and in many cases, not in every case, state and national trends. So the sad news is that Black student success is a problem nationwide. We are not alone. But also it means that we want to then double our efforts to make sure that what we're doing really is trying to address those needs as best we can, knowing that it is a long road, but at the same time, too, we feel the urgency of how to move forward in the best way that we can. And we know this because of looking at the data across the state and across the nation. In some cases, our Black students the success rates of our college for Black students is higher than the state average, and in some cases, unfortunately, it is lower. But we know we are dealing with a systemic sort of 400 years of dispossession and disenfranchisement. And so it's important, I think, that we keep that perspective. So the reflection piece is looking at where are the things that we fell short. And it's true that we consciously set some very bold and ambitious metrics and goals last time around. Many that we didn't meet, but there were also some green shoots of change. We knew that certainly in terms of enrollment, we saw some increases in enrollment. We saw some sustained success in terms of persistence. We also know that Black students 3 years ago were disproportionately impacted in 4 out of the 5 metrics, and today it's 3 out of the 5 metrics. So I think we embrace the things that are showing promise, and then we're also very clear-eyed about the work that still needs to be done. I think also we know that when we look at engagement on the ground, we're seeing a lot more engagement. And so that's everything from events, activities, program growth, et cetera. The next part of the plan is executive summary, as it suggests, as it says on the tin, and that's just a sort of roundup of the key highlights of the plan, and that's something that every college has to submit alongside the actual larger plan. Then there's the C plan metrics and strategies, and essentially the Chancellor's Office this time around has asked each college to address 2 goals per metric. And so they've given us data to suggest for every single metric, which are the students that are disproportionately impacted, what's the percentage of that metric, what would it take to remove the disproportionately impacted categorization, and then also what would it take to fully erase and remove the equity gap. So those are the goals and metrics section of the plan that we have to speak to, and the Chancellor's Office has basically given us that data. So then the key part of that chunk of the plan, when you look at it, is the strategies that folks have identified that we think will help us meet, or at least start to chip away at some of those metrics and those percentages. Then there's the student-focused populations. I mentioned the 3 populations that we have embraced in the body of this plan: Black students, Latinx students, and LGBTQ plus students. This section of the plan allows us to have a little bit more of an extended narrative about barriers and challenges for these populations, as well as strategies for change. So, for example, with Black students, one of the leading strategies is to sustain and expand Black student-centered programs, such as Black Falcon Success Program, which is a pilot program looking at a success team model for Black students. Amend, which you saw several of the representatives here tonight. Girl, Yes You Can, which is a program that was launched through the previous plan, and even supporting things like the Black Student Union, which has now been around for over a year, which is really exciting, and making sure that these programs have stable funding. For our Latinx students, one of the key strategies is to support our undocumented and DACA students and students with mixed family status. That's a big concern on campus, and so that's something that we're naming in the context of the plan. And then for our LGBTQ plus students, for example, this is one of the many strategies, was to weave inclusion into the academic fabric, extending inclusion into the classroom, ensuring LGBTQIA plus students feel represented and respected, and then consider looking at competency training and establishing what queer across the curriculum learning community might look like. So that's where we are able to spell out some more specific components of the plan as it relates to those 3 populations. And then the comprehensive ed plan is a new portion of the plan. The Chancellor's Office is asking colleges to be a little bit more rigorous around ensuring that students have comprehensive ed plans in a timely manner. So they're looking at some of our historical data, and then also what is our plan going forward to ensure that more students have a comprehensive ed plan, certainly by the end of their first year, but ideally by the end of their first semester. And then the final bit of the plan is, the Vision 2030 alignment. And this is, again, an additional ask this time around, where they want to see how various programs align with the goals and the values and what we're committing to in the equity plan. And that's at the end of the plan. And that's everything from financial aid, looking at our veterans population, our accessibility services center, justice impacted students, EOPS, et cetera. So that's sort of the components of the plan that are in what you have been submitted. I think I've frozen. Oh, sorry. Okay. And then just major initiatives, essentially looking at the plan overall. There's some overarching thematic elements that I think are important. Representation, identity, and belonging. How do we do that? What does that look like? Very much leaning in, I think, even more intentionally around holistic and integrated student support in the form of success teams. That's a model that we're looking to transition to, because we know we need to build more holistic support around our students. Equity-centered teaching and learning, continue to support the work that Teaching for Equity is doing, working in collaboration with Center for Educational Excellence and others. Certainly embracing technology, reviewing data, and thinking about continuous improvement. And then, of course, which is always an important component, is really thinking about it from the standpoint of the career and transfer pathways that are available to students. So that's just sort of a loose kind of thematic arrangement of the content in the plan. And then the last bit I'm almost finished, is looking at the sort of the centering of student voices and what that looks like. And, you know, that's an ongoing process. It's continually something that we think about, how can we do better? But we have, I think, over the last 8 months, we've engaged with a lot of different students in a lot of different levels, both in terms of organizations, student government, student clubs. We've had students who've come to the public forums that we've held to talk about the C plan, to see what it is that their vision is, what do they want to see, what do they want more of, what do they want less of, what's working, what's not. And I think at the center of that is really thinking about the student stories that are reflected in some of the things that we've been able to do. And it was interesting, at a panel a couple of months ago, Dr. Christina Rodriguez talked about her own dissertation journey, but she talked about the idea that student stories and our bodies are also part of the data picture. And so I think it's just always important to kind of underscore, in addition to the numbers on the page, what is the experience on the ground, and what are folks saying to us, and what are their lived experiences. And you can just see the last square there has some of the when we had some great brainstorming sessions with ASSC, these were some of the things, and across other student groups that came to the fore as far as concerns and interests. So I think health service is definitely a big one that we've had a lot of conversations about. Accessibility, folks love the Falcon Flyer, but want to see it grow and be a bit more efficient and hopefully meet more of the needs of our student travelers, of course, undocumented students, and so on and so forth. You can see what that looks like. And then just finally, we built out the section of the website which always has housed the Student Equity and Achievement Plan, which is part of what we're required to do, but we built it out with a more student-facing page and included a lot of FAQs because we were hearing questions coming up, and obviously always happy to have and entertain opportunities to talk to students, to answer questions, to hear what they have to say, but we also thought this was another way to provide an additional resource to students who might happen along this page on their own, and they can kind of tease down some of those questions and get some of those answers. So I will stop there. I wanted to just say that I think also, you know, we're really looking forward to, as we start to implement this new plan, thinking about how to improve the mechanisms for reporting, for communicating out, for monitoring and evaluating. There's been a lot of great ideas that have already come to the fore more recently. So I think that part we'll be able to kind of embrace as we together have this collaborative effort to really support our students, thinking very intentionally, but knowing that we have the flexibility to pivot as we need to, knowing that we're all going to kind of grow and learn together. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Are there questions, comments?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Trustee Voice?
I have a few, if that's okay. If someone wants to jump in and come back to me, you're welcome to. But can I just clarify one thing first? When there was reference to 3.0 versus 2.0, is 2.0 referring to the last SEAA plan from 3 years ago? That and it's like required we submit another one in 3 years. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
but
so
it's
yeah,
2.0
every
is not a
college,
draft that we haven't seen.
That's right. Yeah, every college is required every 3 years. So this is the third iteration. So they just sort of, for ease, they named it 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
So the first one was 2019 to 2022, and the second one was 2022 to 2025, and then this current one is 2025 to 2010. So sorry for any confusion around.
No. I just want to
Which
make
plan
sure
was
that we're
which?
all on the same page. That there's not a secret like draft that we haven't seen.
No.
This is okay. Good to know. I first wanted to say, you know, I thought it was incredibly brave in 2.0, I guess is what we'll call it, to really focus on one student population that was most impacted. And I thought it was, I don't know that we did the perfect job of getting everybody to understand that sort of curb cutting impact that when we focus on a student population, it really gets us student minded and that helps everybody. I think that sort of wasn't there. I'll say, because there was some comments about should we be adding other groups when we haven't fully succeeded, and I also just want to acknowledge 100% that yes, we understand we did not fully succeed in all the goals that we set on 2.0. I do think it would be, both as a college goal of, developing as an HSI and as the current climate of addressing specifically targeted Latinx and trans students, that it would be inappropriate for us to not address that in an SCA plan at this point. And so I do understand the fear of spreading us thinner when we're not succeeding in the full capacity with that one. I just would not feel comfortable with an SCA plan that didn't include these populations on this one. So I just wanted to say that as I know I could 100% understand the concern of expanding an RCA plan when we're not super succeeding. I understand.
Well, I think also, again, I think it's a relative concept, right? We have to determine together what success looks like. And I think also I would certainly always advocate for embracing where there are green shoots of change and where you're seeing lived experiences changed, and also saying, yes, and the data isn't good enough. We know that. And again, as I mentioned before, there was a conscious effort to set really bold ambitions last time around because we wanted to really compel ourselves to take it seriously and to try to dive in and lean in. I will say that actually in terms of the actual activities that were spelled out in the previous plan, 81% were either started or actually completed within the 3 years. And all that stuff is available as well, just in terms of kind of framing this idea of what does success look like and what is the work that still needs to be done. But I appreciate the comment.
Can I ask a clarifying question on there's in the beginning when you're reporting, when we're reporting on the prior, there's like an expenditure, sorry, it's on 5 of the plan or 151 of the whole packet. There's like a chart with categorical funds, but it doesn't list the categories anywhere.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Is that listed somewhere in the plan that I'm not seeing?
So this is part of the executive summary, and so they do ask in terms of expenditures, and so that's essentially what's been requested by the Chancellor's Office for us to report, which we have. But we can certainly look at, digging down further with that. The plan itself doesn't ask for the detail of the data around expenditures. That's something that's a separate part of the plan in terms of how college was report on funding.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. So I didn't, not to break down further, but I don't know what all those numbers mean. And I don't know if there's a reference somewhere.
Oh, sorry, the accounts, yeah.
Yeah, it's
sorry, so 1,000.
It's numbered differently in different plans and things. Yeah.
Apologies. Now I understand. Sorry, Glendon. Trustee Voice. So 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000, those are our collective salaries and benefits. 4,000 is materials, instructional materials. 5,000 typically is looking at vendors, consultants, etc., contract services. 6,000 is equipment, largely, and 7,000 is usually a combination, but down to some of the direct aid that we have given to students. Although you can see the numbers change there quite a lot because we have other funds that we can use and we can actually provide more direct aid in other ways.
Thank you. I didn't realize it was the same as
sorry, yes.
The other areas. Okay, great. I thought it might be just its own category. Okay.
All right, thanks for those questions. Any other questions? This is not, you do?
Yes.
Oh, well, you have to speak up.
Sorry about that. Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
First, I want to say thank you to the students who did speak up earlier in regards to the concerns. Just wanted to acknowledge that. Also, my question is, I'm hearing 3 groups that we're targeting, but I'm not hearing veterans or Asian American students. And I have personal interests. My husband is a veteran who served in the United States Coast Guard. He enlisted right after 9/11. I'm an Asian American woman. I'm an immigrant. I came here. My parents had nothing. And I can just imagine other Asian Americans who are out there. So I think, thank you so much for your presentation of the comprehensiveness of this Plan 3.0. However, I just want to be on the record that I feel like 2 groups are missing from this plan. So thank you.
Absolutely. And just a quick sort of, again, contextually, the Chancellor's Office is asking each college to build their plan around the students who are the most disproportionately impacted. Now, obviously, we're not trying to turn this into a competition, but I think also the data does delineate certain populations over others that are disproportionately impacted. It doesn't mean that we don't figure out other ways to make sure that all of these students stay on our radar. So, for example, the work we're doing with our ANAPI, the Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Fund, which is now a state-funded program, and we just got another chunk of money, has been really realized to start to build that support mechanism for AAPI students and to make sure that the events and the things that we're doing in the programming, there's a fantastic student mentoring program that they've started within the context of that program. We also know that we haven't named, for example, Native American students, although we are very, I think, committed to making sure that, again, recognizing oftentimes populations and also the intersectionality of students across different affinities and different forms of identity is really important. So it's not that we're taking our eye off the ball of other students or taking the foot off the gas. It's really saying who are the students that at this point in time need the most acute intervention, and then making sure that a lot of the things that are in the plan, by the way, like the Falcon Flyer serves all students. And some of the things that we're doing around success teams will eventually serve all students. Some of the technology that we've leveraged serves all students. But I take the point absolutely and want to make sure if there's things that we can be doing better and really listening to the students in those different populations, of course.
Thank you very much, Vivi.
Thank you so much for all the input. For everyone who has their feelings, and as far as conversations, I just feel like maybe there's been some miscommunication, and we don't have the data, we don't understand where the money's going towards, or, it just seems like there needs to be more communication, clear communication, and, where the money's going, and that there is a understanding of accountability. Because, I heard many different wonderful, even suggestions earlier from our students and faculty just speaking up. And I am very confident the superintendent president and faculty will make sure that they're all heard. In fact, I had some reach out to even me. And of course, I think there just needs to be some open dialogue, transparency, and everyone needs to feel heard before we move forward. I know this is something we are, doing this very carefully and considering all aspects, but I just think there needs to be some more clear conversations on what's really going to happen here, because I agree with some of the comments made of, how do you fix something if you still have other areas that, need improvement. So thank you, everyone, for your input. It was very courageous. It's hard to speak. Your heart races, you turn red, and it can be very difficult to speak. So thank you for your eloquent presentation as well. You always do very well with explaining things. Thank you, VP Neely, and everyone who had input on this. Thank you.
Trustee Voice?
Yeah, thank you again. I had a whole list of comments and I forgot one. I just wanted to elevate, I think the student's name was Jamari, who shared an idea of incorporating major specific supports, and I really liked that, and I really thought it was an important thought. Sometimes we disassociate students from their their identity from their learning, and it's great to have a Black student center, but then if you're going into your nursing class, if you're going into your math class and experiencing those racism things, it's all one institution. It doesn't make sense to have not the sports built in and specialized in those. I thought, and I thought you stated that well with LGBT students, that it sort of needs to be within the curriculum, right? And so same anti-racism needs to be within the teaching that happens in the majors as well too. So I just really wanted to echo that. I thought it was really well. I thought you stated that really well. That this is I'm a science major and I want supports in that major. Yeah, I think that's great. I also wanted to give a shout out when you mentioned the LGBT supports, especially to our theater and ASL programs. I hear the most from my students, from my career students, that like those two programs, ASL and theater, just they think about queer students and queer culture in the curriculum. And so if there's a role models on campus in other departments of that do things well, highlighting those, that's great.
Well, I think it sounds like what you're speaking to, which I think everybody's really wholeheartedly embracing, is this idea of how do we embed this, right? That's why I think that the ask for this plan is really about transforming the institution. That doesn't happen overnight, but it doesn't mean that we don't try everything that we can try and learn from that, right? We're not going to always get it right, and I think we have to give each other the grace, and I think we have to engage in principled conversation about, hearing from students, hearing from faculty, hearing from employees, hearing from other folks about, what could work, what have we tried, what not. But I think also, as you sort of alluded to, I think that this equity work is everybody's responsibility. We all have to be ambassadors. We all have to be thinking about, as you said, how does it run right through the fabric and the kind of heartbeat of the institution.
All right, thank you. Give another comment.
I wanted to point something out. I say with the interest of students and faculty and staff, a multicultural center would be really nice. How can we add it to a paper to show, what students are interested in this? Maybe right now we may not have the funding, maybe right now we may not have the space for it, but it's something that students are interested in collaborating in that.
There's been a lot of conversation about that, and actually there is a mention of exploring that in the plan, and that came directly, I think we had this conversation at ASSC, but actually in other venues where we've had feedback, I think that's been something that's I think yearned for, and I think also as a way to celebrate also kind of the idea that there's coalition building as well, right? We need to be able to serve folks in different capacities, whether it's academic or affinity, but also recognizing that kind of common humanity and coalition building. We can get creative, right? I mean, I'm very much invested in trying to be creative and figuring that out. Sometimes it isn't just about the money or the space. There's other ways to do that, but it is something that has been a conversation. So we're very much looking forward to proceeding as we start to implement this plan and have that be something that we think about. and work with students about, what does that look like? What are the options? How can we be creative together and innovative, both with space and funding? Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to Vice President Lisa Neely for presenting the Student Equity and Achievement Plan. And this is on for information tonight. It's not on for a decision. And I imagine there may be some changes between now and the next presentation. So thank you again.
Thank you.
We're going to have to move on now to the next item on the agenda, which is announcements. Are there any announcements? No? You have an announcement?
Very briefly, or what is it, updates or announcements?
Announcements. Next item is item from the board.
Well, I just wanted to say that this last Saturday on the 15th, I was able to attend a constitutional essay student winners luncheon. And that was held here in Fairfield. And they held the highest was $1,000 gift or for winning the essay. They upped the ante to encourage students to participate in the essay. And from what I heard, yes, we did. We had 4 winners. It was amazing. And we have good dual enrollment partnerships going throughout the different locations. But it was concerning to me that I heard 85% of schools do not participate in this. And I guess every school has access, but I didn't know about it. So I'm going to get more information on this because I do know we have dual enrollment. I know we have high school students here. I know we have students here that go attend our college that would be interested in learning their constitutional rights, because it seems to be in the hot button, high topic about what is constitutional rights and what rights do we have. So I was able to attend this. It was a wonderful ceremony, wonderful luncheon. I just didn't even realize that 85% of schools didn't participate. That's really shocking numbers. So I will be bringing more information back on this to Superintendent President Dr. Kelly Butler, and then I hope to revisit this conversation. So, thank you.
Thank you. So next item is 16, items from the board. Are there any items from the board? If not, we'll move on to the motion to adjourn. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Never thought. Let's do adjourn.
No. It's not just because
I do see.